or you donate to the children's hospital anonymously, you still get that nice warm feeling of knowing that you did something and you didn't even ask for recognition from it. That is still a benefit. Whether you donate to the children's hospital for the tax write-off, or you do it to impress a woman, or you do it anonymously because you genuinely care about children or whatever, the fact that you still feel good, or that still benefits you in some way, gives you the nice warm fuzzy feeling that hey, I'm a good person because I did this. That is not altruistic. It's very, very difficult to come up with examples of true altruism. Most of the time, you can play devil's advocate and poke holes in any kind of altruistic act and find some way that person benefited or got something out of it, or whatever. A lot of people say helping your children is altruistic, but I could come back with saying well, you've increased their chances for survival, and now the chances of them passing on your genes to the next generation are increased, and so you've actually in turn gotten something from helping even your children. So altruism is very, very difficult to, it's more of kind of an ideal or even an idea, but in practice it's almost never really how things work. The other is that helping behavior is never truly altruistic, but is rather egoistic, because helping another reduces the helper's distress or leads to some other form of material, social, or other self-rewards. This is pretty much how 100% of all behaviors go. You're going to get something from everything that you do, whether that's good or bad. You're going to reap the rewards or the punishments. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. You do something for you put something out into the universe, then that will come back on you. Whether that's good or bad, karma and things like that. That's all going to play a part. Whether you do things to solidify your place in heaven, or to whatever. There's going to be some benefit that you can get if you want to be devil's advocate enough about it, to where every single thing, every single good or selfless or prosocial act or behavior that you do is going to have some kind of personal gain somewhere. Hoffman concluded that altruism is part of our makeup and can generate helping behavior. Again, the idea of altruism is very attractive, but in practice and reality, it never really works out that way. In support of Hoffman, Batson and his colleagues have presented evidence that altruistic motivation is triggered by empathy, or feelings of sympathy or compassion for someone as a result of imagining how you would feel in the same situation. Again, putting yourself in the other person's shoes, true empathy, realizing, you see someone stopped or broken down on the side of the freeway and it's raining, you're going to be much more likely to help that person, because you can imagine that it really must suck to be broken down in the rain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The egoistic approach to helping cannot be completely ruled out from the evolutionary perspective. It is adaptive to help our relatives, because every relative who lives long enough to reproduce will pass on some of our genes to the next generation. This again kind of goes back to what I was just talking about, how even helping out your relatives or your children is going to have some kind of egoistic motivation down the line, because you are in turn helping yourself. Thus, perhaps an evolutionary link between empathy and helping exists. From an evolutionary standpoint, helping our close relatives, those who share our genes, is again ultimately a way of helping ourselves. So is true altruism possible? You tell me. What do you think? Me personally, I would say no, because there's always going to be some form of personal benefit if you look hard enough. Even giving your life for a complete stranger, that is some kind of egoistic motivation was there, because they're thought of as a hero, or that's their job, or I want to help people, or whatever. That's the ultimate sacrifice, whatever. There's always some form of reward. If you can come up with some kind of example that illustrates an act of true altruism, then please share that, because it's I've racked my brain and I'm not able to come up with one. And I ask this question every single semester, And every time people propose something, and other people will poke holes in it. Altruism is a very, very great ideal, and in the abstract, it's something we should all strive for. But in practice, and on paper, it's just something that just doesn't really work out. It doesn't exist, because again, you're always going to have some kind of benefit or some kind of reward from everything that you do. Selfishness may be part of human nature, but again, so is helpfulness. We look out for ourselves, but there are times when we also look out for other people, and we all band together to help out. Even here lately with this whole COVID thing, where people are hoarding toilet paper and only looking out for themselves and taking care of their families and their own, no matter what that does for everyone else. If you really truly cared about other people, then you wouldn't take more than you need. You would leave some for everyone else. But when the rubber meets the pavement, when we're put to the test, we do not come up to snuff. We will look out for ourselves and take care of ourselves to the benefit or to the exclusion of everyone else almost every single time. And it's a real rarity that people will sacrifice themselves for the sole benefit of someone else. And this type of behavior is a perfect example of that. Human beings help their children and kin, their friends, and sometimes even total strangers. It is unfair to call them selfish just because this helping is often motivated by the fact that helping feels good. So again, in the end, it doesn't really matter why you helped, why you did a good thing, why you did something beneficial for someone else. You still did something that's good or beneficial for someone else. It doesn't matter that you also got a benefit from it. Matter of fact, getting a benefit from it actually helps increase the likelihood that you will help more in the future. If you keep doing something for everyone else and you don't get any kind of benefit, then again, back to reciprocity, back to things like that, where we're going to feel taken advantage of, and we're going to be less likely to help, and that only kind of helps to increase selfish types of behaviors, because you can't put yourself at risk at all times for the benefit of everyone else. This innate pleasure we get from helping is one important element in the basic goodness of human beings, and again, this goes back to empathy, feeling good when we help others. Bystander intervention. You guys can look up Kitty Genovese. Again, a really interesting story. I think there was a movie about her as well. So look that up if you're interested in her. Bystander intervention is the notion that an individual's likelihood to help in an emergency situation is directly related to the presence or absence of others. It is not a question of people not helping others, because sometimes they do, but rather of the conditions under which helping behavior is likely to occur. Basically, bystander intervention says that the more people who are present during an emergency, the less likely each individual there will step up to the plate and help. Because you're thinking that surely someone else is more qualified or more likely to be of better service here than I am. Or you perhaps think that, maybe someone else has already called the police or called an ambulance or whatever. If you're in a big group of people and, something bad happens, then you're going to kind of look around at everyone else and say, well, surely someone else has already called the police, it's already taken care of. I'm not going to worry about it. But the problem is that everyone that is there is also looking around at all the other people and saying, well, surely someone else has already taken care of this, in a group this size, someone has probably stepped at the plate, and no one ends up calling the police because everyone else thinks that someone else has already done it. If it's just you, then it's all on you, and you're going to be much more likely to step up and help because there's no one else there to do it for you. But again, if you're in a big group of people, then you're going to be much less likely to help because you think that someone else either is more qualified to help or someone else has already taken the necessary steps to get the help there. And that's called bystander intervention. The more bystanders you have, the more people around you, the less likely you are to help on your own. It's not a question of people not helping others, because sometimes they do, but rather are the conditions under which helping behavior is likely to occur. The concept of bystander intervention has been examined in most detail by two scientists by the name of Latané and Darley. One of their earlier findings was that in response to a direct request, helping behavior depends to a certain extent on what is being asked of the helper, most notably the amount of commitment that the helper must make, and that minor or common requests are usually granted. If someone asks you for your help and it's something small, it won't, take a big dent out of your day or, whatever, then you're going to be much more likely to help. But if it's something that, will impact or influence you in a large way, you're going to kind of weigh the benefits versus the costs of that. And if it's someone who you have no connection with whatsoever, and it's not a life and death type situation, or sometimes even if it is a life and death situation, you might not step up and help simply because it takes too long, or it's too much of a disruption to your day, etc., etc., etc. But again, if it's someone that you're close to, most of us would drop everything to help that person because it's a relationship that we care about and a relationship that we don't want to see go away. But if it's someone that you just met, or someone that you don't know and who doesn't have a direct influence over your position in the group or your survival or likelihood of surviving, most of us won't do that unless it's some kind of life or death situation where we think we will get a lot of recognition or a lot of reciprocity owed, a lot of debt from this person. We're going to be very unlikely to risk our lives for someone if it's not part of our job, or it's not part of a life or death thing. If a child is in danger or something like that, most of us would risk our lives for that, but only because the potential payoff is much greater than climbing up to rescue someone's cat out of a tree or whatever. We're not going to risk our lives for that. Most of us won't. Excuse me. Second problem with helping is that emergency situations is that they are almost by definition unusual events for which the potential helper is ill-equipped. We've kind of talked about that a little bit. If you have no idea how to deliver a baby, and a woman around you goes into labor, unless you're the only one there, you're going to assume that surely someone else probably knows. Maybe there's a nurse or a doctor here. If you're at Six Flags or something, you're not going to really make a huge effort to intervene and get that done because you have no idea what you're doing. You might make it worse, but really a greater impact would be that someone else either is better equipped at doing this, or someone else is on the way. Someone else has notified the authorities, and more better equipped, more knowledgeable help is en route. A third characteristic of emergencies is that they occur suddenly. If we are to react, we must do so immediately without thinking through the best means of responding. We may thus hesitate in a state of indecision while the crucial time for action passes by. This is a lot of times, your reaction of, depending on how grave the emergency is and how serious it is. A lot of times we will just kind of stand there and freeze, go, what do I do? Because we don't know what to do, because we haven't all been trained in, emergency preparedness and response. Not all of us are ER nurses or doctors who know the best course of action. So we're sitting there staring at this person having a heart attack right in front of us, not knowing what to do or just the shock of what's happening. Seeing something like this for the first time or whatever, a lot of us, that takes a little bit of response. But while we're sitting there trying to process what is going on and figuring out what we need to do, this person is laying on the ground, dying. Finally, we may not help because we simply just do not know what to do. It's very difficult to make the effort to provide aid to those if we need it, who need it, if we are unsure of the correct course of action in the particular situation at hand. This is where your training comes in. If you're not CPR certified or whatever, it's a good idea to get CPR certified. I'm a CPR instructor, so I'll keep that kind of in the back of your mind. If you're at dinner and someone next to you starts choking, what do? You do the Heimlich maneuver, but so all of these things, training and keeping that fresh and keeping your response, on autopilot. And again, the more things we can put on autopilot, the better off we are. But if you have to sit there and think about what to do, and once you process it, and even if you know what's going on, you may still not know what to do. Then you just kind of stand there like a deer in the headlights, frozen in fear, and while you're trying to figure out, what am I doing here? What do I do? And the person dies, or something else happens, and you may want to help, you may want to do the right thing and want to but you simply just don't know. You don't know what to do or how to help or anything. Pluralistic ignorance refers to the notion that we often find it difficult to label a situation as an emergency because emergency situations are often ambiguous. What if we're wrong? Therefore, we often look to the behavior of others to determine whether a situation is actually an emergency. The problem is that everyone else is doing the exact same thing and no one ends up responding. You're going to, if you're, especially in a crowd, if a car alarm or something goes off, most of us have kind of conditioned ourselves to ignore those right now because, even if someone is breaking into a car, most of us, that boy has cried wolf far too many times. And so most of us see those car alarms as more of an annoyance, and we don't even pay attention to them anymore. But if, you're at a big crowd or whatever, and a loud noise or something happens and the entire room freaks out and clears out, then you're going to be much more likely to view that as something that needs to take notice, and you're going to kind of look around to see what everyone else is doing. And if everyone else thinks that's an emergency, then you're going to heighten your response, and you're going to respond as though it's an emergency as well. But if you look around and no one else is really reacting or responding, you might be kind of more inclined to say, well, maybe it's not that big of a deal. Otherwise, everyone else would be freaking out, would be running out or whatever. And so you're going to be much less likely to react or respond yourself. And this again has kind of the same effect as bystander intervention. The problem is that everyone else is looking around and trying to get cues for how to behave from everyone else in the group, and we're all just kind of standing around staring at each other as the building burns up around us. That's kind of an extreme example, but pluralistic ignorance you're kind of shifting responsibility. We're going to talk about diffusion of responsibility in the next slide, but you're kind of shifting the responsibility onto everyone else. If no one else thinks it's an emergency, no one else thinks to respond or react, then you won't either. You don't want to look stupid, or you don't want to make a mistake, or you don't want to respond if there's no need to. So if you're in your house or your apartment or whatever, and you hear a scream, if you're out in the middle of the country and you're the only one, you might be much more likely to call the police than if you're in the middle of a city. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's a girl and her boyfriend playing around and she's laughing. Did you really even hear it? If you're surrounded by a whole bunch of people, you're probably going to assume that, if no one else is running out to help this person, maybe it's not really that big of a deal. And so you're going to be much more likely to kind of push that away. But again, the problem is that everyone else is doing the exact same thing. And what if it is really a scream for help? Maybe you missed an opportunity to save a life. You can kind of see where this is going. That we always look to the behavior of how other people in the group or in our environment are responding, and we're going to make a decision on how best for us to respond in kind. We're going to follow the group, follow the herd. Diffusion of responsibility refers to an individual's lack of intervention simply due to the presence of others. It's kind of just what we talked about. In a situation where a person may already be reluctant to intervene, the presence of others takes the responsibility from the person's shoulders. Surely someone else has already called the police. Surely someone else has already responded. And so we're going to, we might have muted the TV to listen for any other cues that this is something that we need to pay attention to. But if nothing else happens, we'll go back to what we were doing. Because, if it was really an emergency, everyone else would be responding, and, maybe we're stupid and we just don't, maybe we misread it or misheard it. But the problem again is that everyone else is doing the exact same thing, and so no one ends up calling the police or responding, and that's exactly what happened to Kitty Genovese. If you go back and you look at her story, she actually died because of diffusion of responsibility and bystander intervention. This can have life and death consequences. But as part of the herd mentality, none of us really want to reach out and take that initial risk. It takes a rare individual to kind of go against the grain and take responsibility for the outcome of someone else, especially if we don't have to. All right, that is antisocial and prosocial behavior. That is the last chapter for the class. I will post these, and once this is posted, I will post the exam, the second exam and the final exam. Please get those to me by, let's say, by the 4th of May. Again, it should take you 15-20 minutes to do both of them. I want to make it super simple, but just make sure you get those to me. So if I don't get those by, the 4th or the 3rd, the 3rd of May, then actually we'll make it the 4th of May. I think grades are due on the 6th. Then so just make sure that you get those to me. Again, the signature assignment is extra credit. Feel free to do it if you want to make up for a grade that you don't like. That's it. If you have any questions, please shoot me an email or get in the chat.